Okay, so we're going to do, the first thing to know about working in the shop is that we're going to have, we basically have these copper plates, and so you'll get these from the bookstore, and they come in all kinds of different like conditions, because this is basically cheap roofing copper. So when I was a student, you would buy like a 6x9 plate that was, you know, like it was $50 even back then, like back in the old days, right? So these are thinner, so and the copper comes in different thicknesses. And you guys have probably seen copper roofs around, right, where they put, you know, so that's basically all this is. And it comes in a giant 3 by like 8 foot sheet. And when you go to get it, they like pull it out of the racks and they scratch the heck out of it and put these big lines on it, which make it, that'll print it later on. So I'm going to walk you guys through how to prepare a plate. And basically what happens with a plate is that you have to file the edges. So I'm going to just draw on the board here for a second. So if we're looking at our plate in a really like kind of serious cross section, right? So, you know, this is blowing up quite a bit. What we need to do is we need to bevel a 45-degree angle on that edge of that plate. And if we don't, what'll happen is when we run it through the press, this sharp corner right here will puncture holes in the blankets, is what we call it, that it goes over. So it's really important that you always file the edges of your plates, okay? If you don't and you ruin the blankets, then we're all in trouble because blankets will have big rips in them. And so you don't want to do that. So we need to just basically bevel a 45-degree angle off of this thing with a file. And so that's sort of the second thing I do. The first thing is the back of these plates have this ridiculous like kind of plastic coating, which is great because when we put it in the acid, it'll keep it from getting bit. But at the same time, it can be a real pain when you go to print. So what I like to teach students how to do is just how to cut a little sliver off the edge of this. So the first thing I would do is take a plate, flip it upside down, and get out your X-Acto knife, and then just cut like, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch off the back of this thing. And if I cut all the way through, it should peel. So we're just going to peel that off there. Does that make sense? So you do that on all 4 sides, and this will just save you a ton of pain and suffering later, because the ink doesn't get stuck underneath there and squish out all over the place. So I'm going to do this really fast. You can use a ruler if you want, but I usually just kind of eyeball it. So. And some of you guys may decide you don't like this, and almost all of my demos are just kind of giving you some guiding principles. If you have a better way to do it, more power to you. So, not worried about it. All right, so there we go. So now we just, you know, we have the back on there, that'll help. And when we go to put it in the acid, we can just put masking tape on the back of this to protect it. But it just is a lot easier this way. Okay, so now what we need to do is bevel the plate. And so what we'll do is come over here, and on the pegboard area here, we have different files that you guys can use to bevel down the edges on your plate. And the files actually have 2 parts to them. One part is only has kind of lines going this way diagonally, and that's like the fine tooth side. This side has diagonal lines going this way and that way, so both directions. And that is the rougher part. So if you use the rougher part, you're going to take off more material than this part, but it kind of leaves a ragged edge. So what you want to do is take the plate, and what I like to do is kind of do it over here, or at the edge of one of the other tables where I can just put the garbage can underneath it. And if you guys can come around if you'd like to. And again, using the thick, like the more rough cutting side of this, you just basically want to do this. And I spend a lot of time laughing at you guys when you try and bevel your plates, mostly because, I don't know, you guys must not have worked with tools like this very often or something. It's the age of the internet, you're too used to like clicking all the time. But, you know, you don't do this, right? You know, because that's just going to grind like nasty edges on there. It's just like a nice smooth thing where you just go like that. And you want to make sure that you're not like getting the edges of your knuckles cut. A lot of people cut themselves. Blood happens sometimes to the first aid kits right there. So you just basically want to go nice, long, smooth strokes like this, and just hack off that material until we get a nice 45-degree bevel, all right? And you'll see there's some little copper chunks in the bottom of the wastebasket. And if you don't use a wastebasket, then you have to sweep those up and throw them away because they're very slippery and somebody can slip and fall if you don't clean them up. And then I go to the more smooth side, the finer side of this, and I just try and smooth this out. And then once I get one side done, then I can just turn this, and you just want to pay special attention to the corners. And you kind of want to round the corners out just a touch. You want to, again, some of this is personal preference, but you don't have to make them like really rounded, but you don't want a super sharp point that's going to catch on your paper, or your blankets, your fingers, or whatever either. So you just kind of, again, nice long smooth strokes like this, and you want to just go ahead and bevel all four sides of this one down. Is it making sense to everybody? Any questions? Okay. So once I get all four sides beveled, there's a number of like personal preference things I'm going to show you guys here about stuff that you could choose to do or not do. What I like to do is try and get the edges of my plates very, very smooth and perfectly flat. And this is because these edges will catch ink when I go to print, and you'll figure this out as you go. You may or may not like that look in your work. So in order to get those perfectly smooth, I get to use these two great tools here. The first one is the triangular scraper. The triangular scraper has these really sharp edges on all three sides, and you can sharpen them up if you want to. And I taped mine up just to give myself something to hold on to while I'm working with it. You don't have to do that if you don't want. And then this is your bent burnisher. And so what the scraper will do, and I just want to kind of hold it down here, and then right along, you guys kind of see the flat edge of that. You just want to hold the flat edge right along your bevel and just kind of pull. And again, this is one of those things where you don't want to cut yourself. Be careful. And you can sort of see, I think, that I'm pulling little like chunks of copper off of there. And I'm just basically peeling the edges of that copper off so that it won't, it gets rid of that rough edge that was on there before from the file. And then I'm going to use my burnisher here, and I'm just going to really carefully, again, this is the part where you can get cut sometimes, but I'm just going to, and the burnisher works best if you kind of hold it this way and use pressure on your thumb. Again, you guys can do it that way if you want to, whatever works for you. But I usually do it this way, and then I just push down like this. And what I'm doing here is I'm just smoothing out all of those kind of file edges so that my edge becomes really like smooth, kind of glassy and smooth, right? So now I've got a nice smooth beveled edge there. It shouldn't hold any ink. I should be able to wipe that really clean. You'll see what that's like when we do the demo on that. So, any questions about beveling?